You are listening to Shadows over Ravencroft Castle, written by Eleanore Drake, narrated by Jennifer Williams. Chapter 1. The first November storm chased furiously across the Irish Highlands, whipping the almost leafless branches of the trees towards the ground, shaking doors and shutters, howling around the corners of walls and driving people off the streets. Thick mountains of cloud performed their bizarre dances high in the sky, heavy with rain and yet driven further east with the lightness of feathers. The storm was the first harbinger of winter. The air already smelled of snow, and soon the land would be covered in a blanket of white. People retreated to their homes and apartments, sat in the cozy light of small lamps and reflected on the old stories and legends. There were tales of ghosts and fairies, of vampires and werewolves, and of the bloody battles from the country's history. There were numerous inexplicable incidents. The legends and fairy tales were as diverse as the land itself. The Irish Highlands were still full of secrets. Who knew what was hidden in the deep, crystal-clear mountain lakes? What mysteries the dark forests held and what horrors dwelled behind ancient castle walls? The castles and palaces stood defiantly on the often barren mountain slopes. They had survived the centuries, defying the adversities of harsh nature and man's will to destroy. Genders had died out. Murder and manslaughter, hatred and madness were reflected in the history of these castles and fortresses, and hardly anyone alive knew exactly what had actually happened. The stories were too varied, the legends and sagas too unclear. Where the Derryveig Mountains, with their wooded slopes and bare peaks, were at their roughest, where the waters of the crystal-clear lakes were whipped up by the wind in the mountain valleys, there lay Ravencroft Castle. James Ravencroft, an English industrialist, had inherited it from his ancestors, moved away from London, and settled in the Irish Highlands with his wife Elena and his only daughter Cecilia. Elena in particular had asked to live there. After all, she herself came from Romania, where the landscape was similar and people still believe in the power of spirits today. The castle was a showpiece. It had cost a fortune to have it renovated, but Ravencroft dug deep into his pockets and had no regrets. Ravencroft's castle had become his second home, and it was also to become a home for Cecilia. She had been educated in the best boarding schools, had enjoyed a good education, and, as her teachers said, had developed into a truly intelligent, sporty young girl. She turned 21 on that first November. Everything was prepared for the birth.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?